For a brief period in the late 80s into the 1990s, television and film producers thought it would be a good idea to remake some of the most iconic movies in Alfred Hitchcock's filmography. To be fair, it wasn't just Hitchcock that got the TV remake treatment. William Wyler and Howard Hawks had their classics Roman Holiday and Red River subjected to the same humiliation. 1988 saw PBS remake 1941's Suspicion. In 1991, there was a remake of Hitchcock's personal favorite film, Shadow of a Doubt, and in 1988, Rear Window. Gus Van Sant directed a shot-for-shot version of Psycho, so that's a thing that exists, and there was a remake of 1951's Dial M for Murder called A Perfect Murder. That is another thing that exists. But it's the TV movies that really gave viewers a group of low-energy remakes that paled in comparison to the originals. Something they have in common is they lack a strong sense of location in their setting and domestic spaces, an element that played a vital part in the original versions of both Shadow of a Doubt and Rear Window. In this video, I'm going to focus on Rear Window. Starring Christopher Reeve, Daryl Hannah, and Robert Forster, Rear Window premiered on ABC on November 22, 1998, as part of the usually exceptional and literary Hallmark Hall of Fame series. Directed by Jeff Bleckner, this version has Reeve playing Jason Kemp, a former architect who, as a result of a tragic car accident, is now a quadriplegic. Kemp relieves his boredom by spying on his neighbors from the rear window of his apartment. One day, he witnesses sculptor Julian Thorpe viciously beat his wife, Eileen, and when the wife later disappears, Jason starts to suspect murder.
I think he killed her last night.
And a dangerous cat-and-mouse game begins between himself and Thorpe. Starring Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly, and Thelma Ritter, has Stewart playing a photographer named Jeff recuperating from a broken leg, and the updating of the script to take into account Reeves' real-life injury is actually a plus. It allowed for accommodation for Reeves, and bigger picture, it gave visibility and representation to those with disabilities, and realistically portrayed the daily lives of people living with quadriplegia. On May 27, 1995, Reeve fell off his horse during a riding competition and shattered his first and second vertebrae. The resulting cervical spinal injury paralyzed him from the neck down. Rear Window was his first screen appearance after his accident, and he is really the one saving grace of the film. He's sarcastic and witty and droll and makes the most of what he's been given as a screenplay. It's a great performance with elements based in his real experience. There's an added prologue to this film where we see the actual accident occur, and his character Jeff goes through physical therapy and rehabilitation, and those scenes are filmed at Reeves' clinic where he did his rehabilitation after his accident, with him in character reenacting his actual therapy regime. So while Christopher Reeve is doing the heavy lifting of keeping this thing afloat, one can't help but notice how empty the rest of the movie feels. And not empty in just a metaphorical sense, but just empty. There's no sense of neighborhood or location. This could be New York City or Cincinnati or Denver. There's nothing distinct about it or the people who live there. Even the lived-in spaces lack personality. Missing here, to the detriment of the story, is the dynamic interplay of all the neighbors. Miss Lonely Hearts, the Torso, the Newlyweds, the balcony couple and their little dog, the musician. Hitchcock's Rear Window is focused on looking. Jeff is actually looking out that rear window. And he's confined in his space, a 2-room apartment in 1954 in Greenwich Village, for the entire film. I have no clue about Jason before the accident, except he has a closet of nice clothes, an ex-wife, and he's an architect. 1998's version includes too much peripheral story and not enough actual looking. I want him to be spying on his neighbors, not going to a welcome home party thrown by his coworkers that we don't care about. But even if he was looking, his neighbors aren't a well-sketched menagerie of New York characters, and they lack the little dramas and multiple subplots that draw us into the 1954 microcosm of city living. One of the most impressive things about the original Rear Window is its iconic set, designed by Hal Pereira and Joseph McMillan Johnson. The Greenwich Village apartment courtyard was built to scale on a Paramount soundstage and made up of 31 actual apartments, some of them fully furnished. Over 1,000 lights were used to simulate the brightness and authenticity of natural sunlight to make the block appear outdoors, and those lights could be modified depending on the time of day. And the complex has its own vibe and feel, and so do the people that inhabit it. We never know their names, we never directly interact with them outside of watching them with Jeff through his window, but they feel fleshed out. Besides the action around the courtyard, we also see the street beyond it and the shops and restaurants that line it. The neighborhood is a living thing with people talking and shouting at each other, friendship and conflicts and music and laughter. Now contrast this vibrancy to this flat wall of windows. Where Hitchcock directs a careful choreography of movement that helps us get our bearings and create tension and suspense, there's no complexity and attention to detail in the updated film. And as much as Christopher Reeve is giving his all, poor pacing, a lackluster screenplay, and direction that fails to deliver on suspense and anticipation do his performance a disservice. What should be an exciting story just feels like a letdown, and we know this story works because we've already seen it. Jason only has eyes on the drama of the murderous Thorpe and his wife, with occasional wistful glances to some of the other units. Jeff, on the other hand, watches the complexity of the community playing out before him, with all its dramatic, romantic, and mundane aspects of daily life. I know which window I would want to look out of. There's 8 million stories in the cinema cities. This has been one.